The man charged in Tupac Shakur's murder is speaking out from behind bars for the first time.
I'm innocent. I ain't killed nobody, never did ever kill nobody.
New footage of Tupac just surfaced, showing his details of his moments and what really went down that night in Vegas. It's shocking, raw, and changes everything we knew. New update that changes everything. For decades, Tupac's tragic passing brought in lots of rumors, conspiracies, and endless debate. But this new footage changes the game, showing his final hours in the hospital, confirming what really happened, and connecting every detail from the bullet-filled BMW to the Las Vegas streets where the world watched Pac's last battle for his life. When it comes to Tupac, everybody got their own story, their own theory, their own version of what went down. Some folks swear he dipped out, some claim he went underground, and some stay riding that Pac Alive train like it's gospel. But these new clips slide in smooth and heavy, just enough to make people say, all right, something different is happening here. And the wild thing is, the footage lines up with what the jurors already saw inside that Las Vegas courtroom. They were shown a cold, bullet-ripped picture of Pac's body lying helpless. The picture showed the bullet wounds, the scars, even the stitches where doctors tried to bring him back after those shots tore through him on September 7, 1996. But the prosecutors weren't stopping there. They kept pushing because they knew people had been spinning stories and lots of controversies about Pac's passing for decades, and this case had become a whole legend. So, they showed jurors the bullet-filled BMW Pac and Suge Knight were riding in. Also, the frames of the car seats covered in blood. Not just that, one of the witnesses, a childhood friend of Pac, was also brought to testify. He was with Pac after the incident, and when the DA asked him if he had ever heard from Tupac since the day he passed on, he said no. He also told the court how Pac's mother stepped into that hospital space and broke the news to everyone. Her son was gone. That detail never changed. The prosecutors even apologized before they asked the witness the question. This is going to be a silly question. This was because they already knew how deep different conspiracy talk ran. In a way of addressing the rumor that Pac faked his passing, they decided to at least clear the air. The footage ties in with testimony from the medical examiner and the detective who attended the autopsy too. They both confirmed Pac's passing. The jurors also saw the demise certificate, which sat in the courtroom like a final stamp, and those images of blood on the Las Vegas Strip, showing where Pac lay before losing consciousness, were part of the same package prosecutors laid out. Still part of the findings, the DAs played videos of Keith D talking in interviews about his role, bragging in some parts, explaining in others. They even read pages of his memoir, Compton Street Legend, where he explained how he helped hunt down Pac that night, claiming he tossed the Glock pistol into the back seat of the Cadillac. And when they spotted Pac and Suge later, shots were fired into their car from behind. Events leading up to the tragic night. September 7, 1996, Tupac Shakur was living his usual fast life in Vegas, catching that Bruce Seldon versus Mike Tyson battle at the MGM Grand. Right by his side was Marion Suge Knight, holding it down like always. After the battle wrapped up crazy fast, Tyson done in like under 2 minutes, the crew started moving through the MGM Grand lobby. That's when things got wild. One of Suge's boys, Trayvon Trey Lane, spotted Orlando Anderson, a young homie from the Southside Compton Crips. Now, this wasn't just some random dude in the crowd. Earlier that summer, back in July 1996, Anderson and his boys had tried to jack Lane at a Foot Locker in Lakewood, California. Respect had already been broken, and the streets don't forget that kind of stuff. Lane didn't waste time. He let Tupac know what was up, and Pac, being Pac, stepped up. He asked Orlando straight up if he was from the South, street code for the Southside Crips, and didn't wait for an answer. Tupac turned and knocked the kid to the ground. From there, Suge's crew jumped in too, stomping and showing Anderson that disrespect like that wouldn't slide. The whole mess was caught on the MGM Grand surveillance cameras, security rushing in to break it up before it got way uglier. After that incident, Tupac bounced back to the Luxor Hotel. He hit up his girl, Kidada Jones, and let her know he got into it with Anderson. She had been chilling elsewhere, and Pac made sure she stayed safe while he dealt with the situation. Suge and Pac then dipped in a black BMW, rolling out to Club 662, Suge's own spot, where Pac was set to perform at a charity concert. Even with the troubles from earlier, the show had to go on. During those last few minutes before anything crazy went down, Pac's boy Leonard Jefferson snapped a picture. You know, the one that's famous now, the last image of Tupac. The tension was real though. Anderson had been humiliated in front of everyone, and the streets had rules. When respect is lost, retaliation is expected. While Tupac was laughing and making moves to perform later, his earlier actions were cooking something really bad. The MGM lobby incident wasn't just about a quick punch. It was a spark that would light up the troubles to come. Even though the hotel security broke up the battle and Anderson got escorted out, in the streets, you don't just let go of getting stomped in front of the world. The disrespect was real, public, and witnessed by hundreds. Everyone knew Anderson and his crew were gonna want revenge. So, Pac, Shug, and the rest of the crew rolled out of the Luxor, cruising in their convoy, all the while the energy from earlier still hanging in the air. Pac was looking smooth. In his new threads, Kadada staying put at the hotel as he told her, and Leonard capturing that last relaxed image, showing a young man at the top of his game but blind to the storm about to hit. That BMW ride wasn't just a drive to the club, it was the calm before the lightning. You could say Pac was alive in the moment, conscious of everything around him, feeling that energy, feeling the streets watching him, feeling the hype, feeling the love from his people. But even in those few minutes, the streets never sleep, and karma in Vegas moves fast. Every move he made, every word he said, every punch he threw had consequences. So, right around 11 o'clock to 11:05 p.m., Tupac and Suge Knight were rolling down Las Vegas Boulevard in that fresh black BMW, just vibing after the club and the earlier chaos at the MGM. But you know how Vegas cops stay. They spotted the ride and pulled them over. It was the LVMPD Bike Patrol, and they weren't playing. The officer said the music was blasting too loudly and noticed the car didn't have plates visible. Classic Vegas stop, but it was minor. Turns out, the license plates weren't lost. They were just chilling in the trunk of Suge's car. A few minutes of back and forth, some polite talk, and the cops let the crew slide without writing any tickets. Tupac, Suge, and everyone in the car kept it cool, just smiling, nodding, and ready to bounce. They weren't stressing too much. Pac was in his zone, switching between that relaxed charm and street awareness, knowing the streets don't forget, but also not expecting the night to turn darker than usual. A few minutes later, around 11:10 p.m., things got a little more everyday Vegas vibes, but still, the tension was in the air. Tupac and Suge were stopped at a red light at the intersection of East Flamingo Road and Colville Lane, right in front of the Maxim Hotel. The lights were glowing, cars were lined up, and Tupac, in that brand new 1996 BMW 750iL, was chilling by the passenger window. Two women in a car rolled up on the left side of the BMW. Regular Vegas life, right? But with Pac, even regular moments turn into something memorable. Tupac started talking to the ladies, just chatting, joking, doing his thing, that natural charisma people knew him for. He wasn't just talking, he was inviting them to come through, linking them up to Club 662, Suge's own spot, where Tupac was about to perform. Then came the tragic moment, a tragic stop by the white Cadillac. So, it was about 11:15 p.m. when the night turned real. Tupac and Suge were chilling in that black BMW. Then out of nowhere, a white four-door, late-model Cadillac slid up on Suge's right side. The backseat window rolled down and the bullets let loose. Clips from a .40 S&W Glock 22 tore through the air, aimed straight at Tupac's ride. Pac got hit 4 times, twice in the chest, once in the arm, and once in the thigh. One of those bullets ripped into his right lung, straight up dangerous. Suge got hit too, but just from fragments in the head. Chaos exploded in seconds as the streets had finally caught up with him. Everyone in the BMW was ducking, trying to make sense of what just happened. Frank Alexander, Tupac's bodyguard, later talked about a crazy detail. See, he was supposed to ride with Tupac in Suge's car that night, but Pac asked him to take Kadada Jones's car instead, just in case they needed more vehicles to move people back from Club 662. That move probably saved Alexander's life. Right after the incident, one of the other cars in the convoy tried to chase the Cadillac, but Frank never heard back from them. Yaki Gaddafi was riding in the car behind Tupac with other Records bodyguards. They weren't about to tell the cops anything. The whole crew kept that code tight. Police had no real cooperation, so the investigation started off cold. Nobody was spilling nothing, and the streets had their own rules. Even with a flat tire on his ride and some head injury, Suge managed to keep his focus. He drove Tupac and himself about a mile down to Las Vegas Boulevard and Harmon Avenue, pushing through the streets like a man on a mission. They got pulled over again by the bike patrol. This time, the cops radioed paramedics to get ready. When paramedics hit the scene, they loaded Tupac and Suge into their ambulance and rushed them to the University Medical Center of Southern Nevada. Gobi Rahimi, the record's music video director, later visited Tupac at the hospital. He heard wild news from a marketing employee. The people had actually called the label and threatened Tupac after the fact. Gobi reported this to the Vegas police, but they said they were understaffed and couldn't handle it. And the people responsible? They never showed up at the hospital, keeping their distance, letting the fear and chaos run its course. By the time Tupac got wheeled into the emergency room, he already knew how serious it was. He was bleeding badly, trying to stay conscious, saying he was dying as they carried him in. That was Tupac, facing everything head on, speaking even when his body was giving out. The hospital staff had no idea what they were about to handle. A young cat, barely 25, who had just lived a night full of flashes, battles, and fame, now struggling for his life. At the hospital, Tupac was in bad shape. They had him treated and hooked up to life support machines. The legend kept trying to get out of bed, so the doctors had to put him under a medically induced coma to keep him stable. Kadada Jones, his girl, came to see him, sitting by his side, trying to keep him calm. At one point, she popped on Don McLean's Vincent on the CD player next to his bed, and Pac stirred, groaning and moving a little. Jones saw that his eyes were swollen and filled with mucus. She whispered to him that she loved him, just trying to give him a little comfort in all that pain. Suge Knight got out of the hospital the next day after the incident, but he didn't speak until after 3 days. When he finally talked to the cops, all he said was that he heard something but saw nothing the night of the incident. Cops said it didn't really help their case, and at the time, they had no leads at all. Sergeant Kevin Manning later admitted that the week after that, the crew around Tupac wasn't really helping either, as they weren't talking. While Tupac was in the critical care unit, his crew, including Gobi Rahimi and members of Outlaws, stayed close. They were guarding him, worried whoever shot Tupac might try to finish the job. Rahimi said some of the Outlaws even brought weapons with them, just in case. Friday, September 13, 1996, Tupac's body finally gave out. He went into respiratory failure that led to cardiac arrest after doctors removed his right lung. They tried everything to bring him back, but the bleeding wouldn't stop. Tupac's mom, Afeni, made the tough call to cease treatment. Tupac was pronounced gone at 4:03 p.m. Years later, a cop claimed he saw Tupac's last moments. According to him, when asked if he saw who shot him, Tupac's last words were the F word. But others there, like Knight and Frank Alexander, didn't hear Tupac say that. Paramedics and officers at the scene also didn't report hearing it. So, it's one of those street legends mixed with reality. The case investigation started rough. A year after the incident, Sergeant Manning told reporter Kathy Scott that the case might never be solved. Few clues came in, witnesses came up, and the investigation hit a standstill. Edi Amin, a member of Outlaws, believed the cops knew what went down, but he was frustrated, saying, "This is America. We found bin Laden," meaning serious stuff can get solved when they want it. In 2002, the Los Angeles Times published a big two-part story about who ended the life of Tupac Shakur. Reporter Chuck Phillips said the Southside Crips were behind the incident. Orlando Anderson, the guy Tupac had fought at the MGM earlier that night, supposedly fired the fatal shots. Las Vegas police considered him a suspect, but only interviewed him briefly just once. Well, Anderson himself passed on nearly 2 years later in another gang-related incident. Phillips also suggested East Coast rappers, including the notorious B.I.G., might have been involved with other criminals from New York, making the story even messier. The second article highlighted police mistakes. They ignored the battle at the MGM that happened just hours before, failed to follow up with witnesses who might have identified those responsible, and didn't track leads about a white Cadillac that matched the car the people used to escape. The investigation was slow, and cops missed chances to get answers. Years later, the FBI released files showing they looked into the Jewish Defense League, which allegedly extorted Tupac and other rappers with threats. In 2017, Suge Knight even said he might have been the real target, hinting it was a setup to take over the record label. At the time of the incident, Tupac and Suge had a whole caravan, around 10 cars deep. Knight later said in an interview that he didn't know who shot Tupac and would never tell the cops. Yaki Gaddafi got into a disagreement with cops 2 days later, protested over a traffic stop, and left Vegas soon after, bouncing between Atlanta, LA, and New Jersey. Police tried to get him to look at mugshots of gang members, but he never responded. Suddenly, he was shot, which ended his life in New Jersey 2 months later. As for Edi Amin and Frank Alexander, they mentioned that in early 1997 that cops never asked them to view photos of suspects, even though they saw the people and the car. When Alexander was shown a lineup later, he didn't recognize anyone clearly. Mean claimed he saw all 4 men in the car, but Alexander only got a profile view. Police disputed their accounts of what they told them right after the incident, and those questions grew even larger years later when Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, Orlando Anderson's uncle and a known Crips leader, came forward and claimed in the USA Network documentary Unsolved that he was in the car with those who ended Tupac, sitting front passenger. He didn't name the person because of street code. He said Terrence T. Brown drove. Anderson and DeAndre Dre Smith were in the back, and the person sat behind them. All of them were Southside Crips and are now deceased. Then came 2016, James McDonald, a former bodyguard, said he saw Anderson and other Crips near Club 662 in a white Cadillac before the incident. That wasn't all. Radar Online added that Keefe D said after waiting near Club 662, they went to a drink barn, then the Carriage House Hotel, all while the records convoy moved through the streets. By the break of 2023, on July 18th, the Las Vegas Police Department hit up a house in Henderson tied to the investigation. It turned out to be Dwayne Keefe D. Davis's wife's crib. Fast forward, Davis got arrested September 29th, charged with the passing of Tupac, and stayed locked without bail. He pleaded not guilty November 2nd. The trial got set for June 3rd, 2024, then pushed to November 4th, 2024, and now it's delayed to February 9th, 2026. Meanwhile, during the grand jury, a Southside Compton Crip said DeAndre Big Dre Smith, not Orlando Anderson, was the person who shot him. Then by August 5th, 2025, Davis changed his lawyers, got convicted in April 2025 for a separate jailhouse battle, and got 16 to 40 months with credit for time served. The Tupac trial is now officially set for February 2026, and everyone's watching. Despite all the debates and unanswered questions, Tupac's influence never faded. And now, with this new footage of the incident, every controversy gets flipped upside down and rewrites how we remember him, how we feel about those last moments.